Welcome back to the alternate history of the British Empire, the Imperial Federation. This is Part 7, 1980 to 1990. The 1980s was the first decade in which all the imperial colonies were members of the Imperial Federation. Seats on the Imperial Council had grown to 841, which were distributed among 23 states. Seats within the Imperial Parliament had grown to 1,646 among 21 states. The two states not represented in the Imperial Parliament being the United Emirates of Arabia and the Kingdom of Oman, due to them not being democratic states. Although all colonies had become members of the Federation, calls for electoral reform began to grow, especially among states with larger populations such as the Dominion of India, who felt underrepresented under the current seat distribution. However, with external threats being a more significant concern and the ruling Imperial Conservative Party at the time not interested in reforming the Imperial Federation's constitution, major reform was not pursued during the decade. In the last month of 1979, the Soviet Union intervened in the civil war in Afghanistan by having the Red Army invade the country in order to support the communist Afghan government against the Islamic Mujahideen rebels. This action alarmed the Imperial Federation as they viewed it as a threat to the Dominion of India. As a result, in January 1980, the Imperial government began covertly sending aid to the Afghan rebels. The Imperial government also set up a secret program where Muslim members of the Imperial Armed Forces and Dominion Defense Forces could volunteer to fight the Soviets in Afghanistan. In the same year, the 6th Imperial Exhibition and Games were held in London at Wembley Park and took place from May 5th to November 15th, 1980. The exhibition and games saw record-breaking attendance, with over 100 million visitors attending over the 6 months of the event. On July 29, 1981, a worldwide television audience of over 1 billion people watched the wedding of future Emperor King Charles, the Prince of Wales, and Lady Diana Spencer at St. Paul's Cathedral in London. From March 1st to March 31st, 1982, the Imperial Cup of Football took place in the Kingdom of Egypt in the cities of Alexandria, Cairo, and Suez. In the finals, the Dominion of South Africa demolished the Dominion of Rhodesia 7-0. On April 2, 1982, the Argentine Republic, under the military dictatorship of Leopoldo Galtieri, launched an unprovoked invasion and occupation of the Imperial Archipelago territories of the Falkland, South Georgia, and South Sandwich Islands. Tensions over the islands had existed for years, and Argentina claimed sovereignty over the islands, which had been under imperial control since 1833 and was populated by people of British descent. Although the sparsely populated archipelagos were not of much economic or strategic value, Imperial Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher considered the invasion an act of aggression that necessitated a military response. The Imperial Armed Forces dispatched a naval task force, including 2 aircraft carriers, many warships and submarines, as well as support vessels, to reclaim the islands. The task force also included troops from the Dominion Defense Forces of South Africa, Caribania, and Canada. Nearly a month after the Argentine invasion, Imperial Special Forces retook the uninhabited island of South Georgia on April 26th. A week later, on May 2nd, the Imperial submarine HMS Conqueror sank an Argentine cruiser. On May 4th, HMS Sheffield was hit by an Argentine missile and sank 6 days later. The land campaign began on May 21st, when 4,000 Imperial troops landed on a beach of East Falkland. During the landings, HMS Ardent was sunk by Argentine jets, and 2 days later, HMS Antelope was also sunk while supporting the landed troops. On May 25th, HMS Coventry and supply ship SS Atlantic Conveyor were also sunk. From May 28th to May 29th, the largest battle of the war took place at Goose Green, where outnumbered Imperial troops defeated Argentine forces. Although the war saw intense naval and air combat, the Imperial forces used superior technology and tactics to gain an advantage over the Argentine military. After intense fighting, Imperial forces successfully recaptured Port Stanley, the capital of the Falklands, on June 14, 1982. Argentina formally surrendered, and the war ended with the Falklands remaining under Imperial control. Over the war, nearly 26,000 Imperial and Dominion Defence Force personnel took part, compared to 13,000 Argentine military personnel. The war lasted about 10 weeks and resulted in the deaths of 649 Argentine military personnel and 255 Imperial military personnel. In 1982, Irish nationalist terrorism raised its ugly head again when, on July 20th, the Irish terrorist organisation, the IRA, bombed military ceremonies in Regent and Hyde Parks in London. The attacks killed 11 people and injured another 59. Nearly 5 months later, on December 6, 1982, the IRA bombed a disco club in the northern part of Ireland that Imperial soldiers frequented. The attacks killed 17 people and injured another 66. In March of 1983, protests and riots organized by communists broke out on the island province of Grenada in the Dominion of Carabania. On March 13th, communist rebels overthrew the provincial government by occupying the provincial parliament building as well as other government installations across Grenada. The rebels proclaimed Grenada an independent communist state. The government of the Dominion of Carabania vowed to take back the island province as soon as possible. On October 25, 1983, the Dominion Defence Forces of Carabania and Canada began an invasion of the island of Grenada. They received air, naval, and special forces support from the Imperial government. In just 8 days, the Dominion Defence Forces overthrew the communist rebel government, and on November 8, 1983, a provisional provincial government was installed in Grenada. Of the over 7,000 Dominion defence troops that participated in the invasion, 19 were killed and 152 were injured. Of the 2,000 communist rebels, 69 were killed, 417 were injured, and 638 surrendered. From June 9th to June 25th, 1983, the Imperial Cricket Cup occurred in cities across England and Wales. In the finals, the Dominion of India beat the Dominion of Carabania to win their first title. On December 17, 1983, an IRA car bomb exploded outside Harrods, a luxury department store in London. It killed 6 and injured 90. In early 1984, in the Punjab province of the Dominion of India, separatist Sikh militants had taken refuge from the Dominion government at the Sikh Golden Temple. On June 1, 1984, Imperial Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, against the advice of the Imperial government, ordered the Dominion defence to remove the militants from the temple by force. The operation lasted 10 days and resulted in the temple being occupied by Dominion defence troops of India. It resulted in the deaths of nearly 5,000 people, many of whom were civilians. The operation increased anger and tensions among Sikhs in the Dominion of India. Nearly 5 months after the operation, on October 31, 1984, Sikh members of Dominion Prime Minister Indira Gandhi's security team assassinated the Prime Minister at her residence. The conspirators of the assassination were put on trial and sentenced to death. The assassination of the Dominion Prime Minister outraged many Indians, and anti-Sikh riots broke out over the next 4 days and resulted in the killings of 8,000 Sikh citizens. Imperial troops were called in to stop the riots and protect Sikh citizens. Indira Gandhi's son, Rajiv Gandhi, took over the job of Dominion Prime Minister. On October 12, 1984, the IRA detonated a time bomb planted in the Grand Brighton Hotel in England. The bombing was an attempt to assassinate Imperial Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, who was at the hotel for a party conference for the Imperial Conservative Party. The attack resulted in the deaths of 5 people, one of them being Imperial Member of Parliament Sir Anthony Berry. From August 20th to September 30th, 1985, the Empire Games were hosted in the city of Singapore in the Dominion of Malaysia. In June 1986, protests broke out in the city of Johannesburg in the Dominion of South Africa. Citizens were protesting racial disparities and discrimination in the Dominion government. The protests soon spread to other major cities across South Africa. On June 12th, the Dominion government declared a state of emergency to put down the protest. Yet protests continued and spread to the neighboring Dominion of Rhodesia. Thousands of demonstrators were arrested in both dominions as the protests continued for months. In September 1986, a member of the IRA, Patrick McGee, was arrested for carrying out the bombing at the Grand Brighton Hotel. He received 8 life sentences for his actions. In March 1987, the Dominion governments of South Africa and Rhodesia passed civil rights bills to ensure the legal protection of people of color in their dominions. A few months later, in June, the Imperial government also passed a civil rights law to further protect rights and stop discrimination based on race and gender against any citizen of the Imperial Federation. From July 4th to August 9th, 1987, the Imperial Cup of Football took place in the capital cities of each member of the United Kingdom: London, Edinburgh, Dublin, and Cardiff. In the finals, England beat Wales 3-1. Another major sporting event took place in 1987. Between October 8th and November 8th, the Imperial Cricket Cup took place in cities across the Dominion of India. In the finals, the Dominion of Australasia beat the United Kingdom to win their first title. On November 8, 1987, the IRA bombed a Remembrance Day ceremony in Ireland. The attack killed 12 and injured 63. The bombing of a ceremony for the remembrance of all who had fallen in battles throughout the Federation was seen as extremely reprehensible, so much so that even members of the IRA condemned the attack. On October 3, 1988, the Imperial Federation and the United States of America announced the signing of the USIF Free Trade Agreement. The agreement would go into effect on January 1, 1990. The US would have access to the largest tariff-free multinational market in the world, and the Imperial Federation would have access to goods from the largest economy in the world, the second largest economy being the Imperial Federation. The Soviet-Afghan War, which had been raging for a decade, finally came to an end on February 2, 1989, as the last Soviet troops left the country. Although the Imperial Federation was not directly involved in the conflict, the Imperial Intelligence Agency did provide covert support and funding to the Afghan defenders. Also, Muslim members of the Imperial Armed Forces and Dominion Defense Forces were permitted to sign up to join the Afghan defenders. This Soviet defeat was followed up a few months later on November 9th, when the wall dividing the German capital of Berlin between the Communist East, supported by the Soviet Union, and the Free West, supported by the Imperial Federation and its allies, was brought down by citizens of Berlin. This marked a major victory for the Imperial Federation against the ongoing communist threat. The 1980s witnessed significant shifts within the Imperial Federation, marked by both internal political developments and external pressures. While calls for electoral reform and greater representation for larger dominions like the Dominion of India emerged, they were ultimately overshadowed by more pressing global events. The Soviet intervention in Afghanistan and the subsequent covert support provided by the imperial government highlighted the Federation's role in international conflicts. Furthermore, the Argentine invasion of the Falkland Islands and the swift military response underscored the Federation's commitment to defending its territories, even in the face of significant challenges. These diverse events collectively painted a picture of a dynamic and evolving Imperial Federation navigating a complex global landscape during this pivotal decade. Join us next time to see how the Imperial Federation ends the 20th century and how pushes for reform shake up the Federation. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you haven't yet done so, go back and watch the other videos in this series.